I've always said I don't think he's going to be a Celtic player. I think he's one of these guys that will just sort of come in. It was a terrible signing and it's not going to work out.
Blaming the players, praising the fans. And did you see he sent all the players to go and confront the fans who were booing them and abusing them and probably throwing stuff at them?
So the thing about Barry Ferguson is he was a bang average footballer that the press just had an almighty staunch on for, as far as I'm concerned. Football management, It's not as easy as Brendan Rodgers makes it look sometimes. That's this week of 20 Minute Tims. I'm your host Jamie. I'm joined by Martin Melly.
Yes.
And Stephen.
How's it going?
Better than my wildest dreams expected.
Do you remember just last week I sat in this very chair and said, I don't know if I can see this season getting any better. Take it back. That's yet another podcaster doesn't know what he's talking about. Podcasting hot take alert. I got it completely wrong last week. It has got better.
It was quite surprising to me, Melly, because Barry Ferguson was announced as Rangers interim manager just on the cusp of when we did the podcast last week. That was we all got our laughs out then. And I just thought to myself, I want to see how this plays out. And the games are coming thick and fast in the last couple of weeks. So we've had 2 games in a week. Barry's had 2 games of football management at the highest Scottish level under his belt. And they've both went, from my point of view, brilliantly.
Oh yeah, it's went from celebration Barry, and that's what we kind of expected, didn't we? We thought, what was it, last Wednesday night, the Kilmarnock game where they came back from 2-0 down. He's got it. The players get it now. A couple of days later, there's nothing to get here. All he's doing is giving these gestures from the sidelines that mean absolutely nothing to MD. It's what we thought would happen. I didn't expect it to be this quickly. I thought they'd maybe come in, get a bit roused for a couple of weeks, and then when they start to see this guy he's nothing about football here, it's all about geeing you up and telling you what it means to play for this club. All the nonsense that we hear all this time, it's about being a football manager, and this guy simply isn't.
What I've found out over the last week of Barry Watch is he's got like 4 or 5 rehearsed phrases, and that's really all he says, Stephen. He says, we've got to get back to winning games of football. This is Rangers Football Club, which is said as like a statement of fact, and he's right. It is Rangers Football Club, but beyond that, you're like, well, what does that mean, Barry? There's what else does he say? Oh, we need to win football games on a regular basis, and we need to work hard. And I thought to myself, passion. I'm like, right, okay, but any football chat, anything, because the problem they've got is, Barry Ferguson, this is all very well and good, but it only lasts one time. These buzzwords only work once. But he's starting already to sound like a pundit, not a football manager.
Funny that, because that's exactly what he is. And I noticed the little coward that he is has already started distancing himself from the performance of the players. He's referring to them. They don't understand what I'm saying. I wanted to see more passion from them. Not the usual management would say, we need to do better, we need to do this, we need to implement a style of play, etc., etc. They don't get what I'm trying to say. They don't. I've made myself clear. My demands on the players, but they don't really get it. They're not really performing.
But are you trying to say that there's more to being a football manager than turning up and going, I used to play here, I used to win football games, you need to win football games?
Sometimes it can be as simple as that, but apparently not. Apparently at the very top level that Barry Ferguson is wholly unqualified to be operating at. Sometimes it does take a little bit more than that. And I was listening to him. And why are we talking about this? Because
we're playing them in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, because they've shit the nest once again, and we've gone 16 points clear. That's exactly why. And the game's coming up. So I noted that he was talking about, the players aren't doing this and that. That's because you are entirely unqualified for that position, and they're not listening to you. Every single person in this room, everyone watching, everyone listening will immediately think of that time. We've all experienced it. We've all worked for a boss that we thought was a total clown and didn't know what they were talking about. We didn't respect them. We didn't listen to a single word they said. That's what's happening to you, Barry, because you're the most unqualified manager in the entire division, and you're out there talking about standards being delivered to players who've been playing at a level above the level you have managed at. How dare you dictate to these players who have actually won trophies? Not anywhere near enough. James Tavernier's won a couple of trophies with him, but he's made 500 appearances now and been dictated to what it means to be a right good Rangers man by this the absolute nobody.
So the thing about Barry Ferguson is he was a bang average footballer that the press just had an almighty staunch on for, as far as I'm concerned. He got a wee trip down to Blackburn when his uncle Graham took him there, and he got a wee trip down to Birmingham after his uncle Eck took him there, and then he returned to Rangers. And he's lost more games against Celtic as a player than he's won. And I just don't think people are ready for that conversation. And I think even us growing up in our generation, they idolised Barry Ferguson, that they created this enigma of Barry Ferguson as if he was like one of Europe's top midfielders playing for Rangers. But the fact of the matter is he was good. He was all right, but he wasn't Callum McGregor. He wasn't on this. He wasn't even on that sort of level of player. And now he's stepped in and he's trying to use this mythos to sort of conjure from the ether management ability. And he's stepped into Ibrox and he's talking as if, he's getting high in his own supply. He's talking about all the things he did as a player and all the things he did as a manager. Well, less so as a manager.
Imagine one of the Rangers players was sitting there now and going, this guy, he talks a lot about Rangers. Do you know what? I'm going to go and look at his career right into depth. Barry, you left Rangers twice, and when you came back, you said, I'll never leave Rangers again. What sort of Rangers man leaves the club twice? I don't get it.
I think Barry Ferguson, in many ways, is... I think he's been put up there, as we all know, as like an avatar, hasn't he? The real management team is Neil McCann and Billy Dodds. And Barry Ferguson's been put there as an avatar. You might say. Yeah. Well... no, you might say. I certainly wouldn't say that. He's been put there as an avatar there to keep the fans on side, hit them with a few buzzwords, and hopefully things roll on and it's fine. But the crucial thing, and this is the point I made last week, and this is what a lot of people are forgetting, it's all fun and games now, and everyone's trying to be nice to Barry Ferguson. They've got 2 Mourinhos and a Brendan Rodgers coming up. Football's about to get serious for Rangers, and it's about to get serious for Barry Ferguson, and it's a long old season. They're acting as if there's 3 or 4 games left. There's not. There's a lot of football to be played, and there's 2 games against us, and they're struggling against the likes of Killie and Motherwell. It's not going to be pretty, and we're going to be here every single week. Talking about it, I know. And I have a couple of obsessed mancs.
Obsessed Dims yet again. What's the part they always hit us with? 20-minute Tims.
That's 23 hours,
23 hours, 40 minutes. And see if you search like X for that, it's been said like hundreds and hundreds of times. An absolute patterless hive mind. And I do note that thousands of Rangers fans will tune into this and they'll pause it to tell us that we're obsessed with Rangers as well as they pause the Celtic podcast.
Do that. I like it when they talk about how we look as well. Just anything to just get the algo going.
This was not the problem, because it's great to see the problem come into fruition, but when Rangers appointed Barry Ferguson, like wildest dream stuff we talked about last week, like if we made a prediction at the start of the season, who's going to be the Rangers manager when Clement gets sacked? I don't think any of us would have said it'll be Barry, because we would think they're not going to be that daft. They've done this, but they've done this February, and like you said, Jamie, there's a long time left in the season, and Rangers are looking at this, right, we need to get through at the end of the season, but what's their long-term plan here? They're going to need to get themselves together, and they're going to need to sell these players ultimately, because they can't just have somebody come in and give them money. It doesn't work like that. So they're going to need to sell these players. So these players who are underperforming or who are performing at a level where they're at and they're just not very good can get worse, because they've went from a coach, a man of substance, we were told, to a guy who cannot be called that. And the coaching, if it was good, which I don't think it was, can go down. It can get worse, and these players can get worse. They can feel, what is the point here? This club don't care about how the rest of the season goes. Why should I perform here? And any assets they have, and I say that in Neil Lennon quotations, assets, it's going down. Their best players are on loan, or Hadji, their most creative player, I think he might be out of contract. Looking at guys like Jeffy getting linked with Chelsea. Chelsea will take one look at that second Motherwell goal and go, that's plenty. And you look at Motherwell and go, they've brought in a manager a week ago that's brought in a style of play. What's Barry done?
The Motherwell, that's the best, one of the best part of this story. Motherwell have made a significantly smarter managerial appointment than Rangers have, and that is absolutely incredible. They both needed a manager roughly about the same time. One club went out and got someone who has worked a bit at Rapid Vienna and Stuttgart, and the other one came from the pub via Alloa and Killie. So it's really remarkable.
I just want to put on record at this point, though, because they're in different situations. People will be listening. Celtic fans will be listening to this going, well, we know Rangers are in a different situation. They've got this takeover coming.
Yeah.
So Barry he's an interim, whereas Motherwell were making a sort of permanent move.
Yeah.
That being said, there are just because it's interim doesn't mean you pick Barry Ferguson.
No,
there
no,
are choices, and they're going to pay for it. And it's our job as Celtic fans to make them pay for it. And Melly, you make a great point. Last week, Barry made the point, I've only had an hour with these players, and with 1 hour under Barry Ferguson's tutelage, they managed to fight back against Kelly. And then a couple of
McInnes' Kilmarnock.
Yes, and then a couple of days later, with more Barry, they were shitter. So if you're plotting this on a graph, as you see, just because they're spending more time with Barry Ferguson doesn't mean things are getting any better, and players need to buy in. And football management is a skill in itself, and it's not like sometimes there is a bit of alchemy and charisma and things that managers need, but the simple stuff about setting up a team, putting on a training session, make sure the players understand that. I'm telling you right now, Philip Clement was a million times better at all the nuts and bolts of football management than Barry Ferguson ever was. The records show it. Barry Ferguson managed nobody, and Philip Clement at least had some sort of career. But listen, just before we wind this period up, because honestly, it's hilarious to me how this is going to pan out. I was listening to a Rangers podcast today.
Of course, yeah. Obsessed, mate.
Tune right in. And one of the contributors on it was so worried about coming to Celtic Park in a couple of weeks. He invented a new word. He said, this could be Graham Murty levels of dismantlation. Which is, he says he's worried about coming to Celtic Park because it could be Graham Murty levels of dismantlation. Anyway, I'm going to leave you on this.
The Queen spinning her grave at that use of English, that's absolutely
on
shocking.
Armed Forces Day of all days.
They were abseiling down the stadium and
they were abseiling down the Broomlow stand. They had the former piper to Her Majesty the Queen, no less, piping them down the marble staircase.
And then all the soldiers were sitting with Lana Wolf as well. Did you see that? It was just
Sweeney?
Yes, such a dignified occasion, just all around. It really was.
I saw somebody going like, how did you end up there? She's like, they invited me.
Yeah.
Like, Jesus Christ, some of those guys probably wish they were back in Afghanistan. Taking fucking shells from ISIS rather than sit next to that grenade. Listen, former Rangers captain reveals the crazy pre-match routine that used to get him fired up for the derby day.
Right.
Barry Ferguson, here we go. Now, big games, routines before the games. These are the sort of things he'll be passing on to the players as Rangers manager just now. Any ideas what this might be if you've not read it?
I'd like to think most professionals would be quite quiet reflection, just taking a moment to themselves, maybe some headphones in, maybe a playlist, just
bit of guided meditation, a bit of breathing.
Manifesting what might happen in the game, how they're going to do it, making sure they're boots and all that, everything's professional
and all that sort of stuff. Okay, me, says Barry, and this is true, I'd slip away quietly, okay, and head to the toilets. I'd have a pre-match pee, fair enough. And as I was standing there going about my business, I'd catch my own reflection in the bathroom tiles because they were exquisitely polished. What are you fucking looking at? Presumably Barry would say to himself, not his penis. What are you looking at? I can't help it, Barry. Look, I know this sounds crazy, says Barry. It probably is. But I jabbed my fist into those tiles as if I was ready for a fight with the whole toilet wall. It was nothing too bad. I wasn't trying to smash the place up or anything like that. Sometimes I'd ask the toilet door for a square goal. And before sticking my head on it, again, I was just looking for that little edge to get me fully pumped for what lay ahead. Then I'd dig myself in the ribs. I'd bite on the inside of my bottom lip until it started to bleed.
Oh, wow.
I wasn't taking chunks out of myself or anything like that. I love how caveats it.
Yeah.
I just needed
you
to
wouldn't want people getting the wrong idea about this.
No.
I mean, no.
You don't want to hurt yourself. Batting the shit out of a cubicle. Anyway, it says just to give himself that extra jolt to really feel that buzz. And when I was done, I'd walk into the dressing room on a slippery linoleum floor and do 5 massive jumps, bringing my knees into my chest. And that is the pearls of wisdom Barry will be passing on.
Why do we not know it's linoleum?
So a lot of footballers will take inspiration from like Any Given Sunday or some sort of like YouTube compilation of like motivational speeches and all that. He gets his motivation from that toilet scene in Liar Liar where he battles himself.
Yes.
Unbelievable. You see, joking aside, the one thing I did notice about the game against Motherwell is that 1 week into this job, he's gone into complete self-preservation mode as well by playing to the gallery in world-class terms. Like, he's blaming the players, praising the fans. And did you see he sent all the players to go and confront the fans who
Yeah.
were booing them and abusing them and probably throwing stuff at them? Who is this for? Do you remember there was the criticism, completely different level situation, but Vincent Kompany was criticised because he took Burnley down, but it looked, the way he was playing, it looked like he was auditioning for a bigger job by getting them to play kind of expansive football and all that, and it wasn't working at all. But he was basically saying, "Look what I can do if you give me a bigger
If
job."
that bit worked.
Yeah, but that's obviously what Barry's doing here is like, look, if we get rid of all this lot, put me in the hot seat. Look what can happen. Look, I'm proper staunch here. Get decent players in. I can bring something to this club. That's what he's doing here.
Listen, that's it. That completes our segment on Barry Ferguson this week, because honestly, it's too delicious to ignore at the moment.
It's a dream come
if
true.
you think that's good, patreon.com/20Minute Tims is where you can support this wonderful podcast and get more content from us, writing, videos, podcasts, fortnightly Q&As, pre and post match podcast entertainment. It's all there. And with the Glasgow Derby coming up, why not get involved? Because it's going to be absolutely delicious by the sounds of it. That was Brendan Rodgers' favourite win of the season.
The Motherwell game. Certainly mine. Yeah.
And I can understand why, because it's been a slog as far as these fixtures have come in. Basically 2 a week. Was that 3 games in 6 days or something we played, or 3 games in a week? It felt like
3 games in a week, eh?
3 games in a week. Far too many.
A lot of tough away games as well.
Aye.
There's been the 2 away Champions League games that would have taken a lot out of the players as well. Aston Villa and Bayern Munich were 2 massive games. So it comes at the end of that really thick and fast, as we've been saying for ages, run of fixtures. We're now settling into the kind of 1 game a week routine now.
Yes.
But that was the kind of last
We are
of them.
talking about the St Mirren game.
Yeah, the St Mirren game, which really had the potential to be another really tough away game. And we spoke a wee bit about this last week, about how Celtic's away form it's not cause for an alarm. It's not like a criticism. It's more an observation about how starting quite poorly. Poorly's maybe overstating it a little bit, sluggishly at times. But I think, as we kind of mostly agreed upon last week, it's because they've been playing so many games. Squad's a wee bit light these days, so it's really about getting as many wins as possible. So I agreed with Brendan Rodgers. I thought the St Mirren win, the nature of it was actually very impressive, because it could so easily have been one of those games where it could have been 2 each, and we think, just the away form's not quite as good. But I blew them away in that sort of last 20-25 minute period.
It's really impressive to see it for Celtic, because we did dig it out in a difficult game, and we were talking recently on the podcast about how sometimes there's a vibe about Celtic when things aren't going well. It's usually because we kind of expect one of our teammates to dig us out. If someone's not having a good game, think, oh, well, do you know what? Jota will pop up a goal, or Dyson will pop up a goal, or Reed will bail us out. But in that game there, I felt like the players just found that wee bit extra. I mean, it wasn't a brilliant game. We weren't absolutely brilliant in the game, but we found what it took to win it. And I mean, fair play to St Mirren. I think the score probably didn't reflect the true nature of the game, but it doesn't matter. Celtic got the win, and we dug out the win, and we are finding ways just to win football games.
Yeah. Dug out a 5-goal.
Well, it felt like that at times.
I know what you mean, because
Same with Aberdeen, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
It wasn't the most convincing of games. I came away from that thinking, is that really 5-1, that game?
10 goals in 2 games, and we're moaning about
I
it.
remember at half-time, me and you were like, we're winning 3-0 here, and we haven't even been good. But it was the same for the St Mirren game. I think the reason it was so pleasing was it was guys like Jeffrey Schlupp and Yang and McCowan coming on that sort of changed it about, didn't it? Because it wasn't your usual, like this last season, probably up to the end of the year, Celtic probably would have drawn or lost that game, because we'd simply, if we had a bad game, we'd nobody to rely on coming on. Now we've got players who can come on and affect the game positively, and that competition's coming in there as well, even though we've not got the huge squad right now. But having guys that don't usually star for you come on and make a difference and do things really made a difference. And seeing that sort of, not heroes, but different players pop up and go, do you know what? See if Kuhn and Ida are off their game. We've got Yang coming on, Jeffrey Schlupp's making a late appearance to go, do you know what? Maybe towards the end of the season, he's going to be the main man. So there's different players stepping up, and that was a really tough game. Celtic haven't been at their best over the last while. I just feel like I always remember Martin O'Neill would get to a point in the season where he'd say, players are tired coming up to that sort of international break, and I hated that, because it was giving players an excuse to go, that last week in your work coming up to your holiday where you just sort of phone it in. If you give players excuses, sometimes they'll take it. And
players getting the board games out, is that what you're saying?
Exactly,
End of term.
getting the TV on
Getting
in the
the
last
TV
day at
wheeled
school.
in, that's it.
But this team don't do that. It felt like this game was the one where maybe we say, right, this is the last one. Get this one out the way, maybe a couple of days off, and then we've got Hibs in the Cup, we've got Rangers. We just need to get this one out the way. And could easily drop points in that, but we didn't. We dug in and came up with real moments of quality in the game, and that's what dug us out of it, essentially. It wasn't, I can't say MD grabbed the game by the stuff in it. It was just individual moments of quality that got us through it.
Hey, Stephen, what's the most tedious thing in the world of podcasting?
I'm not sure actually.
Well, it is the obsession with being correct.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
So I'll ask you again, but we won't edit it out. Stephen, what's the most tedious thing in the world of podcasting?
Well, obviously, Jamie, obviously it is the obsession with being right and sticking to your guns and doubling down and all that. Yeah.
So with that in mind, is it about time we discuss?
I don't even know why you'd ask me. It's so obvious.
With that in mind, should we discuss potentially handing out an apology to a certain Mr. Yang?
Yeah, it's time.
It's time to have the Yang discussion, isn't it? Because throughout Yang's career on this podcast, we have some of us have started in different places. I was quite positive about Yang. I like the look of him. Check the record, bud. I was quite intrigued by the Yang's appearances, and then the bad for me overshadowed the good. He would come on to games and he was really quite poor, and it wasn't just poor in the game in terms of his overall performance. You'd watch things happen like balls go out of play, or would get the ball nicked off him like it was kids v adults or something. Some of it was quite cringe-inducing watching at the time. You just thought, eventually I personally thought, okay, there's nothing here. We have to write the guy off.
There was one, was it last season where he got taken off at half time? Was it away at St Johnston? Where I just thought, he's offering absolutely nothing to this team
even
whatsoever.
Recently in the game, I'm not saying that these things have disappeared from his game, but even recently, was it Bayern maybe, or was it Aberdeen? Can't remember. Someone just came up and just took the ball right off him, and it sprung an attack on us. We've spoken about how playing him, it feels like just an obligation, like he offers nothing. Melly, what have your thoughts been on Yang over the piece?
I've always said I don't think he's going to be a Celtic player. I think he's one of these guys that will just sort of come in. It was a terrible signing and it's not going to work out, but he's starting to turn that around a wee bit.
Stephen?
No, I'm fully in now. I'm not going to say he's like going to be an absolutely top class Celtic player. I've said a number of times recently on our various Patreon properties that I think best case scenario is if we can get Yang to a point where he has a really good option off the bench,
doing what he's doing right now,
an impact sub, we have arrived at that. And see, if I have reservations or misgivings about a player and I keep challenging him to do better and he does do better, I keep saying, right, you need to get more goals, and he does that, you have to create more goals. And I know that Ange Postecoglou had a press conference recently where he said he's not really impressed by assists, and what he said was that sometimes players can be credited with an assist when they didn't really do anything. What they did was they touched the ball last on the way to someone else scoring a goal. So I get that, I totally agree with that point. But when you look at that ball that he played for Maeda through the middle against St Mirren, that's an assist. That's the creation out of nothing from... No, Dyson still had a lot to do, clearly, but that ball was so good that it sent Dyson through and basically gave him a golden opportunity to, one, show his brilliant skill and finishing ability, but it was created by Yang. So he's doing these things, and I keep challenging him to do better, prove me wrong, and he's done all of those things recently. Now, there's a long way to go with him, but it would be foolish of me and basically just sort of churlish, and as you put it, Jamie, tedious of me to sit and double down and for me to move the goalpost. He's doing that, but he needs to do this now. But he's still not Jota. No, but he's still not done it at Champions League level. That would be me moving the goalpost. And what I've always said all along is that he needs to be more productive on the pitch. I've always thought he was a really good dribbler. I've said that all along. He's a really nice dribbler. He's got quick feet and good touches, but he's never really put that towards anything tangible where you could say, right, he's actually contributing to the team in another way that isn't just he looks like a good fives player. That's kind of what he was at best in months gone by. But in this run of form, he's actually putting it all together. And what I said as well is that I'm unwilling to have the conversation on a weekly basis. If he starts playing consistently well, then I'll happily hold my hands up. And this is me doing it down.
So let's go into. Were you wrong about Yang?
Potentially, but are you wanting to go around, or do you want me to expand on it?
Yeah, go expand on it.
I don't know if he'll ever be anything more than what he is right now, a fourth choice player for Celtic. He's he's doing well just now. He's doing what we asked of him. He's getting goals, and the two headers, he's in the right place at the right time. That's part of your job. Brilliant. But I want to see more of the, like Stephen said, the assist for Maeda, because essentially that's his job. He's
Roy Keane here.
well, he got an assist for the Maeda goal against Bayern Munich, but he scuffed a shot and
That's the difference.
Maeda headed it in. Whereas was it the Aberdeen game? He goes down the left and puts a ball across. It might be wrong what game it was, and that's what I want to see with him. Yes, he is a good dribbler, but I want to see that go into something that you get a reward from it, where he gets an assist or lays it on a plate for somebody, because they're not always going to bury it. But I'm still don't ever think he's going to be a starting Celtic player. But is what we're getting from him right now good enough? Aye, it is.
But you wrote. I mean, people that listen to the podcast, and there are dozens, will say that you wrote him off. And you're not writing him off. So wrong? Were you a man enough to admit you were wrong?
Aye. Well, yeah. I think I still will be proven right that he won't be a starter for Celtic, but he can be a Celtic squad player now.
You man enough to admit you were wrong on
Well, I would have to check the record, Bud, on it and see what I've actually definitively said on Yang. I've always tried to be very fair, but being honest, I have quite a long time ago I came to the point where I don't want to talk about him anymore, because at a certain point where he was playing quite badly, us talking about him on a weekly basis felt kind of cruel, and I didn't really want to do that. I didn't want to come on podcast every single week and go, he's no good enough, he's terrible, he's never going to make it. But now he is. He's making differences, and he's actually contributing massively to games. It's not that he's just coming on and looking good. He contributed hugely to that win, and a huge win, really impressive win over St Mirren. So we have to give him credit for that. And I don't really know what it means to be like all in on a player, because I'm not saying that he's ever going to be Jota or even Kuhn, or I don't think he's ever going to be one of those guys. But is he a valuable Celtic player? At this moment in time, he absolutely is. There's not any denying that. And again, it would be kind of foolish to say, nah, not interested. I said 18 months ago he wasn't going to be good enough, and I need to stick to that. Nah, opinions can and should change with new information, and that's what's happening here.
And he really affected the game on Saturday night, didn't he? Because coming on at 2 each, he gets 2 goals and he gets the assist, whereas the Aberdeen game during the week, he gets the 4th or 5th goal in a routine victory. But these games he's coming on and having a positive effect on the game. What I will like to see is a wee bit more consistency. And I'm not expecting him to come on and do this all the time, but I want to see more of what he done on Saturday. When Celtic needs somebody to change the game for him, are we looking around and going, Yang in the bench? Are we going, do you know what, Yang could do something? He's done it recently. We need to see more of this where he's having a positive effect on the game, so it's not just putting him on for the sake of it, just to give somebody a rest or because we've run out of options. Because there has been games in the recent past where he hasn't been brought on when Celtic have been trailing. The Easter Road game, Celtic have been trailing, needed something in that game. Brendan Rodgers didn't see fit to put him on, so it's not that long ago that was happening, but he's came on at the weekend, positively affected it, done well during the week, and we just need to see this continuing. He's a winger, going to be inconsistent, it's not going to happen all the time, but if we can get this out, I'd be delighted with that.
So there you go. Look, don't ever let people think that podcasters, 2 of them there, quite happy to admit they were wrong about Yang.
2? Is there a third one coming? Yeah. Yeah, never mind.
Yeah. So Brendan Rodgers, he's got
just before we leave Yang, just one wee thing, just for tell people I'm not doubling down. Celtic went out last second goal against Bayern Munich. Who scored it?
Don't know.
Alphonso Davies.
Oh,
yes.
Their left back, who's meant to track him? Yang.
Boo. Panto.
Melly, I don't know if it's on camera, but there's a prop beside you there. What is it?
That is a signed boot by Patrick Roberts.
And the reason I bring that up
the left foot as well.
The reason I bring that up, Stephen, is because there's maybe a discussion to be had about how good Brendan Rodgers is with wingers. It seems to be the position where he's most accomplished at getting the best out of players. We've seen so many wingers come into Celtic under Brendan at various periods of time, and it just seems to improve them all.
What does that say for Lewis Palmer? I cannot do anything with him.
Sorry, son, listen.
If it's in you, I'll find it.
It's not in you.
I'm not a miracle worker, I'm a football manager. You've got to go.
Yeah, I suppose that I've never really considered it, but there's definitely a point in there, because you look at
Kuhn?
Yeah, Kuhn's redemption has been immense as well over the last sort of 6 months. But then you look back to the previous spell, the best of James Forrest's
Yeah.
career. Scott Sinclair had arguably the best seasons of his career under him.
Raheem Sterling broke for under
Yeah,
him.
Paddy
that's
Roberts.
Patrick Roberts. Yeah, the list goes on and ends at Palma. But no, I suppose there's definitely something in that.
Maeda's improved dramatically.
Oh,
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Yeah, Dyson, I mean, clear player of the year now. I think that's, I mean, it would take something special to not give him it now. So, yeah, I suppose there is a bit of a pattern emerging there with Brendan Rodgers and his miracle work with wingers.
Yeah.
And even at that, like, wingers is famously, whether it's one of those just sort of football myths or not, whether it's true, that doesn't really matter. But people always say that wingers, by their very nature, are pretty inconsistent. So Brendan Rodgers seems to be a master at getting the very best out of them, regardless of that.
Was that a partridge there?
What the
Wingers by their very nature are consistent. Zombies by their very nature are inconsistent.
So it is.
An accidental
I'm
partridge.
so full of them, I didn't realise. But yes, I have accidental partridges myself. Yeah.
I was going to mention there Maeda, and I'm glad you mentioned it, Stephen, because we've spoken at length about how good Maeda's been, and he's
Difficult to even talk about it now. Yeah.
unbelievable. But it kind of does turn my attention to KYOGO, and we were talking when KYOGO went about what kind of move that would be for him and the reasons for why he would go to Rennes and why he would leave Celtic when he did. And it turns out basically he was itching to leave, wanted to try himself at a higher level. And I've subsequently read an interview with him where he said, you know, when he was left out of the Japan squad, he was really hurt by that. And it really
2022 then, the World Cup with that.
it really
yeah.
affected him, and he thought that, you know, he really needs to get there, be a mainstay in the Japanese squad, needs to be playing in a top 5 league. The move to Rennes itself surprised me because I didn't think at the time it was the right move for him. A team that were struggling, a team that were battling for their place, battling for survival in the league. And I think Melly, he's been there since the end of January. He's played 83 minutes. He's touched the ball something like 14 times. An unused sub at the weekend so far. And now the manager that signed them's left. Another manager's come in, and this manager hasn't seen any signs of picking him. And it's just all you can say right now, looking at Kyogo's career at Rennes, is it's not worked out. It's been a flop for him.
No, definitely. And I did a podcast with Alex from The Athletic, and he looked into Kyogo going to Rennes and Jota coming from Rennes and explained what was going on. And it was just before the manager was sacked, and he said, look, I wouldn't be surprised if Sampaoli leaves, a new manager comes in, doesn't fancy Kyogo, and he's sort of on the sidelines. Days later, that happened, and Kyogo hasn't started a game. I think he's been off the bench once, and so what are you doing to my boy, man? But to be fair, this Rennes manager comes in. Kyogo is a very specific striker. You have to play to his strengths. He's not one of those guys that can drop into any team. I don't feel you have to be set up for him, and that's going to be very difficult going to Rennes with a sort of hovering above the relegation. It didn't look like the best move for him, and look, maybe we're the idiots here. The Japan manager plays Maeda through the middle all the time. We're telling him Kyogo's a better striker, and now we're looking at it going, yeah, is Maeda the best striker and winger at Celtic
In
right
the world,
now?
yes.
Yeah.
Maeda right now is having a better season than Kyogo did this season.
Oh,
before Kyogo left.
easily. Kyogo, we sort of looked at Kyogo and Ida and went, is it Celtic? Is it they're focusing on the wingers too much and it's leaving the strikers out? But Maeda's went for the middle and looked as good as he was out wide, if not better. So it's maybe
Poor
just
Ida, man. Poor Ida. This is the one thing we didn't want
I
to
know.
happen. Here I come in to replace Kyogo. He's finally gone. The road is clear for me. Oh,
What was all that Brendan Rodgers, I don't want to play Maeda through the middle talk?
just
Absolute
nonsense.
lunacy. Anyway, Melly.
It's a shame for Kyogo, but he could have sort of looked at it and said, this is a big possibility, this is going to happen. So I don't know whether he's just went to the first move that's came to him. I don't know what's went down, but to just get to a top 5 and that to be the crux of your getting a move doesn't seem like the smartest career move.
I know, Steve, because I was thinking that myself, the defence would be, well, he wanted to go and test himself for a top 5 league, and you think, well, you can only test yourself if you're playing, and this isn't gloating. There's a lot of gloating stuff out there. Look, it didn't work out for Kyogo.
I'm not interested in that.
we're
Palpable excitement that you get to stick the boot into a former player.
I'm not really interested in that. What we want to try and do here is just have a genuine conversation about it. It's no panned out for the guy, and very rarely does that happen where a player sort of itches for him, and it's sort of looking to me like he was maybe badly advised. He didn't do enough research on Rennes, because anyone really could see that.
You need to do your own research.
You do. Rennes were a basket case.
Yeah.
And even from my limited information and knowledge of how Rennes were doing, just having a read at them when I saw they were linked to Kyogo, I don't know. I wonder if he's just been too hasty to get a move. Like, maybe he was here in the summer, it didn't pan out. The move to Atlanta didn't come through, and he just maybe took the first move that came.
Possibly. It seems like it's for a number of reasons it hasn't and maybe won't work out at all for KYOGO. What we might see is that it just doesn't work out at all. One of those kind of, I mean, dare I cite the name, but like Shane Duffy things where it seems like everything should work, but for whatever reason it just doesn't, and then that's a real wasted opportunity. And yeah, I mean, Shane Duffy went on to be a good player again back down south, but KYOGO might, I mean, similar to Jota, I suppose, as well. That's probably a better comparison. He went to Rennes and it didn't work out for him, but I think the management thing may well have killed this completely stone dead. I think like talking about Rennes as a basket case, they are in a top 5 league, and I think he might end up in MLS now after a short
I'd be
period
surprised
of time.
if he goes there in the summer.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going with like how it's not worked out for him, and it might just be a short term thing. He might end up in MLS, but I think this is an opportunity that came up for him, and he thought, right, that's appealing, despite the fact that Rennes are hovering above the relegation zone at the time, and in a bit of turmoil. You're still going to probably back yourself to make an impact. Now, again, he hasn't yet. It's early days, but if you go under a manager who, to all intents and purposes, wants you, that's why he signed you after all, and then a guy comes in and doesn't fancy you, that's ruined quite a lot of spells for players at various clubs. It's a tale as old as time that a change manager and they've got different ideas and might not fancy you. Not that the previous manager was playing him an awful lot, but what I would say on that is that they do have a very highly rated, much younger striker ahead of him, and I've got his name. I don't normally do this with my phone, but I simply need it for this. Arnold Kalamuendo Muinga. Right?
Why did you need your phone?
Because I couldn't remember his name. It's got more vowels than Barry Ferguson thinks is in the alphabet. Did you see that thing? 14. So there he is again. But so he came from PSG and was a very highly rated younger player in France. Seems to have kind of taken a little bit of a dip, but he's back scoring a lot of goals. Previously been linked to all the usual suspects, AC Milan, Newcastle. Hot property in France. KYOGO is very much behind him, but that might have been an acceptance that KYOGO made all along. He might have known that and thought, right, that's fine. If I'm second fiddle to this guy, I'll take my chances. I'll fight for my place into this team. Again, this is often how football works. It would be quite arrogant of KYOGO and us as fans of KYOGOs and fans of Celtic to think, well, he'll automatically go there and be their best player. That's not how it sometimes works. He's 30, this guy's 23, he's scoring goals. It was always going to take him time to get into the team, if he was ever going to usurp this guy. But the introduction of a new manager seems to have completely scuppered that to the point where he's not even getting off the bench, and it's a kind of a shame, really, because as you said, I'm not really getting any interest in this putting the boot in. The grass isn't always greener stuff that people seem to get really excited about when a player doesn't work out. Seem to be keen to punish these players for thinking there's life outside of Glasgow eventually. So I'm not interested in any of that. I think it's just a bit of a shame for it to have worked out this way for a guy who did so well for us and gave so much to Celtic. And again, it's very similar to Jota. Jota didn't kick a ball after leaving Celtic, and now he's back. So it might be the same.
I know Melly wants to come in, but I'm starting to wonder if there is a conversation to be had about players who perform well at Celtic and leave and just don't anywhere else. I mean, who was the last player we sold for big money or reasonably to big money who actually went on and sort of did anything to that higher level?
We've not had many hits in recent years. Frimpong, I suppose, is the obvious one, but that's what, 5 years ago or something.
There's no, as you say, there's been fewer hits than there's been many misses. I mean, as long as we.
Because we still want to sell players.
Well, that's it. It's like a Ponzi scheme. We don't want to let people know. Melly, you wanted to come in.
No, it's just that the weird thing with the KYOGO one was I want to move to a top 5 league to get into the Japan squad when 2 of your teammates are playing in Scotland, doing all right and getting called up. So he looked at that and went, right, well, maybe it's not that.
You think the Japan manager might have actually been onto something?
Yeah. And Hatate, look, we think he's great and all that, but gets called up and he barely gets a minute. And you just maybe look about and go, and I've got really good players, and if moving Maeda into the middle allows them to play better players than KYOGO out wide, then there's not really much that going to a top 5 league's going to do for that. If the manager doesn't fancy or thinks other players are better than you, I don't know what else KYOGO can do. He's scored at the highest level possible, and if he's going to be scoring goals in France, is a manager really going to put scoring goals in the Champions League or scoring goals in France above anything else? It's just doesn't seem like it's worked out for the guy, unfortunately.
How different KYOGO's life must be now. So, Sunshine on Leith.
Oh,
How many vowels in that?
6.
We've got Hibs, and we don't normally preview games because mostly there's not an awful lot to say in a match preview. But that being said, well, on the flagship anyway, it's not going to be an easy game. We've got Hibs have kind of
couldn't ask for any harder unless it was away.
Well, they've kind of swapped places with Aberdeen as the in-form team of the league.
Hibs were bottom of the league in November and now they're third.
It's incredible. I know, it's astonishing.
What, they
stuff.
15 games unbeaten or something? Their best record
15.
since the 40s?
It's an incredible run. Even the game before that was one against us at Celtic Park. We beat them 3-0, but Hibs played well that night and didn't really see it coming at the start of the season. I thought Malky's put him in there so David Gray can get sacked and he'll take his place, but they stuck by him and they've got the rewards for it. And it's not just, you can just see David Gray as a legend, and you know what it's like when you put a legend in, it's always going to work out for you no matter what.
I'd really like to see a legend doing well at an old club. I've just always liked it, despite what I said earlier.
Usually they do for a short period of time.
Yeah.
But that relies on the legend being able to coach as well.
Yeah.
And when you watch Hibs, they've got a good style of play as well. They've been resurgent, and what they play right now, they've already beaten Celtic obviously, but what they do right now is a sort of 3-5-2. Celtic have sort of struggled with that recently. That's what St Mirren played at the weekend. That's what Hibs played previously. And you spoke about it recently, Jamie, about, look, if you may as well play two up front, but I think there is, when you're playing against Celtic, I think there is something in that, because we've seen that the St Mirren game at the weekend, having two up front occupies the two centre-halves, which leaves you space either side of them. And
Olisanya had a lot of joy, didn't he?
Yeah, and teams can play balls down the flanks, and especially when Liam Scales come on, you get a lot of joy from that. But Hibs are going to give Celtic a lot of problems. They've got Cadden, who can put in a good ball out wide, and they're flying high right now, and you can see what confidence does to players. And see, when you amalgamate confidence and a style of play, it's good. You can't just be telling players to get into players and hope for the best. So David Gray's got a style of football. He's doing well. He talks a good game as well without having to try and talk as if he's that coachy sort of guy. So I'm glad he's doing well. I just hope it ends for him at the weekend, because I think it's going to be a really tough game for Celtic.
Yeah, it's one of those ones where I'm actually really, really glad. For a change, I'm really glad that a game is definitely at home.
Yeah.
And because if this was at Easter Road, I'd be seriously worried about it. And how often do you say that going into any cup game away from home? You know, of course, you have different levels. You think some games are tougher than others. But at this moment in time, had we been playing Hibs at Easter Road in the cup, I'd be seriously worried about it. Not that they're a better team, but the combination of them absolutely flying just now, plus Celtic, as we've mentioned a couple of times recently, not so great away, and especially in
even
first
if
halves.
this was the cup final and it was Hampden 50-50, it'd be...
That's it, and that's exactly why I said no. I know this isn't away, but that's what I said a couple of weeks ago or last week, was that the reason that the away form is even slight cause for concern is that teams can take advantage of that, and it somewhat applies at home as well, because you know, if a team is very, very confident, then they'll be right up for the game. So I think that being at home is a massive advantage in this occasion.
It is a massive advantage, of course, but the fact that it's a cup game means that, you know what, Hibs might as well just keep doing what they're doing and
they
go
gave
for
us a
it.
torrid time at home not so long ago.
Yeah,
and Celtic obviously won the game, but Celtic seem to be doing this at Celtic Park, don't they? They'll brush over teams even when not playing well, but away from home have conceded a few more goals, and everything Hibs do is sort of what's giving us problems right now. And having watched their game at the weekend, look, they can get different types of goals, and those balls down the line where they got the first goal from will give Celtic problems, and the sort of crosses that they can put in. And then they've got players on form right now where you've seen with the win and goal at that game. Does that guy do that when Hibs are sitting bottom of the league? Does he take that chance and have that shot? I don't think he does, but they're flying high there now. They've got players on form. They've got players doing the business, and going into a cup game, the manager will just be saying to them, look, just go out and do what you've been doing. It's a cup game. We can go out there and get the victory, and always remember, get into them.
And on that bombshell, we shall wrap up. Thank you so much for everyone who joins us and supports us. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything, but it helps us out massively on the algorithm. And support us on Patreon, patreon.com/20minute Tims. Free trials are open now. See you next week.